accessorizing with the pen. The nails.
Oh. I'm like, I'm a mess. This is not accessorizing. This is not it.
Alright. Here we go.
I call the plant El Man of War.
The following is brought to you in part by MFC Studios. The views of the show's host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the management, owners, or staff of this radio station. And now, it came from the radio.
This is your host Mark Torres speaking. We're here live in front of a live studio audience.
Yeah!
For our 78th live show, courtesy of the East Meadow Public Library. I'm here with my co-host El Man Feldy.
Hey!
I have our senior correspondent Charlie Saladino.
Hello, fun seekers.
And we have our special guest we're going to be talking to, with, and about, which is author, actor, and producer Edward Miskie.
Hello.
This week's show, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking with Edward in just a few minutes, but before we do that, we have to take it away with the news.
Take it away with the news, Mom.
The news is brought to you in part by the fine folks of sci-fi.radio. That's sci-fi for your Wi-Fi. So as the fine folks of the Big Apple Corner, which we are the official radio show of, celebrate over 8 years of pop stuff and pop culture-ness. For more information, go to www.bigapplecc.com. The convention has not been announced yet, but I'm sure they will have one this year. Also want to give out shout-outs to our Patreons, of which there are Danny Grillo, award-winning director Jared Burrell, Kyle Horn, Millie Cortez, New State Famous Dresden Media, Unchi Glenn, Shara Gerard, Yasmin Ray, Rosa, and the Huracan. Want to have your own little shout out? Go to our website, www.itcamefrom.com. Go button on there takes you right to our Patreon page. Also on the It Came From Radio website is my comic book, Designated, a comic book that took 30 years to make, recently performed at New York Comic Con as a radio play, and will be performed right here at the East Meadow Public Library for the MCon on April 20th and 21st. Tells the tale of two warring alien races fighting over a newly discovered power source. The war finds its way to planet Earth, and as a result, some humans gain abilities. As always, we have to talk about start off with the sad news. Let's see. Sad news. Manga artist Akira Toriyama died recently from acute subdural hematoma. He is most famously known for his creating Dragon Ball, which was turned into the anime series of the same name, and Dragon Ball Z, which aired from 1986 to 1996 originally in Japan. He was 68. Are you a fan of Dragon Ball? Are you aware of Dragon Ball? You're looking at me like you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Mark, come on.
Come on, alright.
You kind of know me by now.
No idea what Dragon Ball is. Charlie, Dragon Ball?
Yeah.
Anime?
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
Alright, so you're a fan of his
Dragon
work?
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z, yeah.
I'm very familiar.
So yeah, the creator died.
I saw.
68, yeah. That's crazy, right?
So
Moving on, for more sad news, actor Kenneth Alexander Mitchell also died recently from Lou Gehrig's disease. While appearing in a handful of movies and TV shows, Ken is perhaps best known for his role as Sam Lucas on 15 episodes of the series Ghost Whisperer, Eric Green in 26 episodes of the series Jericho, which also aired on CBS, and most recently, Joshua Dodd on the new Nancy Drew TV series on the CW. He was just 49 years old. Are you familiar with Kenneth's work?
I'm not actually.
Charlie?
Yeah.
I just gotta say, Lou Gehrig, like, how does he feel about this?
How does Lou Gehrig?
How does he feel about the legacy he's leaving, you know?
Well,
I don't want someone named disease after me, you know? Like,
You
the
wouldn't
Jen
want-
Feldy cancer. Oh, I got that one in my groin. Like, you know?
What? You know what? I'm not taking a bait. I'm not taking a bait. Moving on. So sad things. TV executive, producer, and screenwriter Janice Burgess also died recently from breast cancer 1 day after her birthday. While working for Nickelodeon, she created a few shows, most notably to me anyways, was the Nick Jr. series The Backyardigans. It was a computer-generated show described as, quote, a group of 5 animal neighbors, Uniqua, Pablo, Tyrone, Tasha, and Austin, share a large backyard between their houses. In each episode, they meet in the backyard and imagine themselves into a fantastical adventure. Their adventures span a variety of different genres and settings. Many episodes involve visiting different parts of the world, traveling back and forward in time, and using magic or supernatural powers. The characters give themselves different jobs and roles depending on the episode's imaginary setting, such as detectives, knights, or scientists, with many episodes being parodies of action-adventure films such as James Bond, Star Trek, Indiana Jones, and Ghostbusters. Much like children's shows of the day, while only having produced 4 seasons and 80 episodes, the show ran from 2004 to 2013. Now, it's one of those shows where I was not the target audience, but if I was Kid Mark and I saw it, I would have loved it. So adult Kid Mark watched it, like, man, I wish I had somebody, a kid to share this with, because it was such a really good children's programming that wasn't necessarily directed towards kids, like the multi-layers. It's like the Looney Tunes, where you have the double layers of jokes and animation, and it was computer animation in its early stages. It was really entertaining, and that's one of those situations where I wish there was somebody who had a little Mark to watch the show with. Are you gonna say no? Are you familiar with the backyard things?
No, but I'm gonna ask my friends who made the Gooligans, Shadow Sean King, if it's related.
Okay.
That's what I'm gonna ask.
You've heard of backyard things?
I remember it, but also, side note, like there's a compulsiveness in me that's like, you die right after your birthday. Way to tie that up in a bow. And like, what a final point to put on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, innovative show.
It was really good.
Yeah.
So now we have the last bit of sad news.
Oh, stop with this
You
thing.
can still watch the show with the kids.
Give us the good news.
Yes, you can watch. You still watch the show.
There's a lot of kids, so I'm sure he'll love hanging out with you alone.
That's no. Actress and fashion designer Julie Lynn Charlotte also died recently. She was the creator of the poodle skirt. Back to the Future, if you remember when we went Back to the Future in the 50s and 60s, I've seen the first one, will be well aware of the poodle skirt. She made that dress. It's an iconic image, and she was 101 years old.
I was around when they were wearing it.
Right, so that person who made that iconic, was it iconic back when you were in youth? You were just a junior correspondent?
They called it was a thing for it was like, you would go out to a dance. If you were a girl, you would go out to dance with your best poodle skirt on.
Yeah.
And you had
Did you like them?
your little white socks.
Would
with
you
your
say, Elena, wear your poodle skirt?
poodle skirt?
Would that
You
be
like
something
it?
you encouraged your female companions to wear back in the day?
I was not able to have a companion back in the day. I was too young. But that's when you used to see girls go out. They used to have they would like these big skirts and.
Should we see more of them?
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Well, you see them in Greece. Greece, the play.
No, but now.
Oh, now.
Like Ice Spice, who goes out in concerts, not wearing any underwear,
yeah,
crotch
you would-
hanging
you
out.
would
Put
see
on
the
a
poodle
poodle
skirt.
skirt. Yeah,
Alright.
cover that stuff
Stuff
up.
like that always has a penalty.
Bring 'em back.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see those.
You have a chance to bring back the poodle skirt and bring it back and show them. That's it.
And
Alright,
bring back and don't show them.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
look
don't wear
what's in
underwear.
the way, but
Flash.
the white socks.
I don't know,
Right.
that's
You bring
like-
them back.
And the strap,
Right.
strap shoes, those patent leather thingies.
So that's it for sad news. So moving on to the regular news. The Oscars have come and gone, but we hear it came from radio. That means that the Razzies also have come out. It looks like the big winner was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which was based off of the book, which is now in public domain that Disney has, so they no longer own that original concept. And it was that Pooh and Piglet were murderers because they were the guy's childhood friend, and then when Christopher Robin left, they needed him, and so they went around murdering people in the camp. It's a very crazy movie. But they got 5 awards for Razzies, which is Worst Picture,
What?
Worst Director,
What?
Worst On-Screen Combo, Worst Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel, and Worst Screenplay. With Hot Megan Fox getting 2 awards for her Worst Actress in the movie Johnny and Clyde, what I saw with Brett Azar. That was that movie, which I like that movie, I
I
have to
gotta
say.
see this.
And
Yeah.
then she got Worst Supporting Actress for Expendables Part 4
Goals.
as Gina. So,
I wonder how she thinks about that. Personally.
you know, it's
Well,
well,
Razzie,
yeah, as an actor,
they're all in good fun.
Yeah.
Famously, Halle Berry won one.
Okay.
Like I think the week after she won an Oscar for Best Actress. So It's all in good fun. I believe it's a charity benefit, and they raise
Yeah.
money for things. I think. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, Halle Berry came in and she brought the
She
Oscar,
brought the Oscar.
to the Razzies and had both, and she's like,
Balance.
Jackie, and Sandra Bullock also
Yeah.
came down that she won, and she had, so it's
The
kind of-
Razzies are fun.
I think they enjoy
Okay.
it. I think they have a
I thought they
blast.
were all like legitimately bad. Like
I would
remember the
watch that
13-year-old one? Was it like a young kid one, Razzie?
Oh, no, they were nominated. They were
They're
nominated. She was
nominated.
nominated for being the youngest person to get a Razzie, and then the social media backlash was so bad
Right.
that they were like, "Oh, we made a mistake. We're not gonna nominate
Right.
people of a certain age to be nominated for a Razzie."
That's what I thought.
You have to be like
Fox
old
like
enough to
this.
get the joke.
Right, correct.
I would watch that more than I would watch the Academy Awards,
Yeah.
which I wouldn't
You
watch.
can. There's clips of the Razzies online. You can go watch.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
okay.
So,
Good.
moving on, from I guess they have money now department. None other than Neve Campbell has announced that she is returning for Scream Part 7.
Ah.
Neve says, Sidney Prescott is
It
coming
sounds
back.
nothing like Ned.
It has always been a blast and an honor to play Sidney in the Scream movies. My appreciation for these films and for what they have meant to me has never waned. I am very happy and proud to have been asked in the most respectful way to bring Sidney back to the screen, and I couldn't be more thrilled. In addition to Neve returning, Scream creator and writer Kevin Williamson is taking over as director of Scream 7. For those of you keeping track, Kevin wrote Part 1, Part 2, and Part 4 of this franchise. Kevin says, "It's been nearly 30 years since my first script, Scream, was directed by the legendary Wes Craven. I would never have predicted that it would become, or that I would be directing the 7th installment of the franchise. I am overcome with gratitude and excitement, and I can't wait to take this journey with Ned and the entire Scream family as we bring back Sidney Prescott to the next chapter of the Scream franchise. Thank you all the Scream fans, you're the gift that keeps on giving." Now, what's interesting to note is how all this came about.
Right.
Before Scream 6 came out, if you remember, we talked on the show that Neve said that she was not returning because she wasn't getting fairly compensated. Then Scream 6 came out and had the biggest box office return out of the entire franchise without her,
Whoops.
making $108.1 million off of a $35 million budget. The original Scream took in $103 million off of a $14 million budget. Then, the stars of Scream 6, which is Melissa Barrett, got fired over some social media posts,
What?
and then her co-star, also the lead, Jenna Ortega, quit the film, citing scheduling conflicts. It's most likely believed that she was quitting the film in solidarity of the other actors getting fired.
Wow.
Then, the original director quit, because how are you going to make a movie without your two leads?
What?
Or Neve. And now, all of a sudden, Neve is back, and the original creator is going to be directing it. I find this to be very interesting how this all came about. And if she would not have been fired, I think Neve would never have been brought back. What do you think about that?
I have no idea, and I'm not going to speculate what happens behind closed doors that I'm not behind. But I've actually never seen Scream, and to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't know there were 7 of them. I thought there were like 3 of them, and that was it.
Wow.
It's like Scream beating a dead horse.
Oh my god.
What are your thoughts?
I don't know what happened, but it's cool that Neve Campbell's back because she's like the original. And I just discovered Jamie Kenny as a podcast, one of the best podcasts ever. And now I'm back into Scream, and now I have to see all the others because I only saw the first. So yeah, it's nice to see that come back and actually care.
She could be following in Jamie Lee Curtis's footsteps with Halloween and
Oh,
yeah,
maybe.
and once you get hooked with you get hooked with a franchise, people remember you, and eventually you come back.
And maybe she's coming back for the cons, for the conventions, because you can make a lot of money at conventions.
That's also true.
And leverage that, and leverage your cameo, and make a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of a lot of circumstances plus karma. Because I think they should never have had her miss out on Part 6. I think they should have given her the money, let her come back for number 6 because she built the franchise.
Yeah, she's
And-
Neve Campbell. She's
Right.
the OG. Sign the check.
Yeah, exactly. And despite the fact that I think the reason why number 6 made so much money was because everybody was curious how it would be without her. And as we've discussed many times on the show, the actual product does not dictate how the box office is. It's all about the hype and the sizzle and everything surrounding it.
Sure.
So much like with when they had the Vin Diesel and The Rock arguing, it made the film, everybody wanted to go see the film more, so it built it up. So I think that's why it made the biggest money. And if I was Nev, I'd be kicking myself in the butt, like, oh, I would have been in this movie. But then all of a sudden, all this other stuff happens, and she's like, well, now she's in the driver's seat, because nobody would go see Scream 7 without the people in Scream 6 and 5 or Nev Campbell.
Right.
So the studios were like, we like money.
Yeah.
So I think we better try to figure out the best way to salvage the situation and make us look
Couldn't
good.
they have just gotten Drew Barrymore and Rose McGowan and that?
Oh, Drew is dead.
They could bring
Spoilers.
They ghosts, sci-fi. They go into sci-fi stuff. You could find a way to bring anyone back. So they could probably bring.
Yes, you could have brought like
Ken back from
a
the
twin
dead, her
sister.
back.
You're right, yes.
Yeah, and then they have other stars. And no, not saying that Nev's unimportant. Nothing. But
Well, so you think that's the only route that they would have been able to do is try to get
yeah,
somebody
they can
else
just get any star.
to be in it?
Get Charlie Sheen, whatever. I don't know. Do we really need Nev Campbell? I'm just saying.
But
hey,
Jack
that's
Nicholson,
it.
we need Jack
Yeah,
Nicholson.
Jack
Bring him
Nicholson.
out.
Instead of
Bring him
Nev
out of
Campbell.
time.
He's the
It'll be
new
like,
Sidney.
it'll be just as good as that movie up
I
when he
think
did Academy or
it's,
something.
I think it's been fine. That,
Right, just sitting there on the thing, going,
that
I was calling him.
Nev
You call him
is
up.
coming back, and I think that it might be difficult to try to make a new franchise, because that's what Part 6 was the reboot with the new and the old cast and legacy cast. So then for them to do it again might have not been the best way around it, but I think this is a smart, safe way to make this movie. Alright, so moving on.
Yeah.
From the That's a Lot of Nuts.
That's a lot of nuts.
The new Kung Fu Panda sequel has taken the #1 spot in the domestic box office, pulling in $57.9 million in ticket sales in its first week of release, beating out the Doom sequel, which came in at the #2 spot, making an additional $46.2 million in its second week release. For those of you keeping track, the aforementioned Doom is still the highest grossing film of this year, with $162 million, followed by the Bob Marley biopic with $89.7 million. And we've talked about how biopics are not really accurate, and they're just kind of taking a real thing and just making up stuff, because why not? And it's made the money, so that formula works. Yes.
Can I tell you a story about
You can.
Panda? Jack Black, who happens to be the voice.
Right.
Kung Fu Panda.
Love him.
He was sent to Japan to promote the film,
Okay.
which was ironic because it's an animation and the voice of the panda wasn't him in Japan. It was a Japanese. So
Right.
he was saying, why am I
Oh
here?
yeah, that's funny.
But he didn't care, got a trip to Japan, but he thought that was ironic.
Right, you're not even in it.
Yeah.
Well, that actually happens with all films. All films that have international distribution,
Yeah.
they have like and it's usually the same actor who does their voice of the film. And a lot of times they're friends or they stay in touch or whatnot. But I think in his instance, what was funny about it is that the guy's voice is so much higher and different than his.
So much different.
Or it was him. It was either him or Zac Efron. Something like that happened where the guy's voice was so different. It just very obviously was not him. But that happens in a lot of films, and they still go along with the
Right.
question
Yeah.
because obviously they're the big star and they're the draw.
Yeah.
That's weird if you think about it, especially for an animated movie, that he would be the draw, even though that, if you think about it, he's not involved in any way, shape, or form
Sure, but
for the
Sure,
international
but if
audience.
you look at any of the press in other countries, it's still Jack Black.
Yeah, and that is weird.
It's weird.
It's just he's not the voice you're hearing because he doesn't speak Japanese.
Maybe they
Right.
think he's the panda.
They think he's the
Big
panda.
man.
He kind of is a panda.
Yeah,
I
he
love
is.
him.
That would be like the girl that Jack Black turned into in Jumanji would go out and do the promo thing instead of Jack Black.
Right, yes, exactly. So moving on. From the I think this might be a scam department. In Glasgow, Scotland, the House of Illuminati's Willy's Chocolate Experience, which charged $45 per person, was quickly canceled after its first day, after police were called due to multiple parents demanding refunds. Turns out that despite the website promising, quote, extraordinary props, oversized lollipops, and a paradise of sweet treats, and, quote, a once-in-a-lifetime musical experience, attendees were given a, quote, sparsely decorated warehouse with nothing resembling Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The actors who were part of the performance said, "I thought this was where dreams go to die. I already could feel the embarrassment. I knew the script was AI generated as well. I was like, this isn't normal human writing." There was a little girl dressed up as an Oompa Loompa, and that was really upset because she expected Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and got a dirty warehouse in Glasgow. There was just a mob of people outside and inside. It was carnage. There was people just running everywhere, shouting, threatening the organizers. They told us to abandon the script. They had this jelly bean room, but they eventually ran out of jelly beans. I was already rationing the jelly beans of 3 per kid, and that was me being generous. The company says, today has been a very stressful and frustrating day for many, and for that we were truly sorry. Unfortunately, last minute we were let down in many areas of our event and tried to best to continue and push on, and now realize we probably shouldn't have had canceled the first thing this morning instead. We fully apologize for what has happened. We'll be giving full refunds to each and every person that purchased a ticket. Now, it's been all over the internet. If you can see the images, that's what was promised. You look at the website, which is clearly AI made, and to what was actually there, it's night and day. Now, as an actor, have you ever been in a situation where you were hired to do one job, and when you got to the job, it was something completely different?
I mean, I feel like that happens oftentimes, especially in theater, which is where I started, where you get hired to do a job and then all of a sudden you're also doing stuff backstage. And then your headspace is like, well, of course I'll just help. I just want to help. I'll do like this. We'll just get it done. That's not what this is. This is just blatant fraud and a grift. And also, I think a really interesting kind of point to AI and where we're going with it and what could potentially happen if we don't get legislation in place to
Why
protect
don't we label something
to
like
protect
that?
IP and to protect the people who are going to be in those projects, whether they're live or on film. SAG-AFTRA has been doing a great job with the new contract that we just negotiated, and also they've been going in front of Congress to speak to them about the dangers of AI. This is a funny example of how this could happen, but there are of course more serious examples of what could go completely awry with it. And so I'm interested to see where legislation goes with that to kind of protect everyone from AI, because it's not just actors, it could be anyone who is on a phone, on social media, anything. This just happens to be a really hilarious example of it going completely off the rails. Thankfully no one was actually hurt or harmed by this. It's
Well,
just
financially, because
Sure.
it's been investigated that the guy who created this has been doing multiple other scams, and that he has not actually refunded anybody.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a big thing that the police are investigating, going after this guy.
It's like Zero Mostel and the producers.
Yes, matter of
Yeah.
fact, that's very
kind
accurate.
of exactly what it is.
Yeah. Did you actually see any of the pictures or stuff online?
I did.
So what are your thoughts about,
It's
as an
funny.
actress, have you
Scam
ever been?
alert. I mean, they promised a paradise of sweet treats and an oversized lollipop. That's
Yeah.
why I don't date anymore. That's my last date promised me that. He said you're gonna have a paradise of sweet treats and an oversized lollipop. I got nothing. Saw that.
Well, have you ever been in a situation where you've been booked for a job and you go down there and you want to get it for nothing?
Once, sort of, for an extra, because I was told, and maybe it's my misinterpretation, I was told it's a featured spot, blah, blah, blah. And I get there and I'm like Cadillac, it's a background thing for like Cadillac. I'm like, I don't want to be a cab today. What is this? So, and they said, oh, you're going to get screen time, blah, blah, and it was just bizarre.
Could you imagine the guy at the door with the room full of jelly beans that worked there, and he was like, welcome to the room full of jelly beans, you can only have 3.
Yeah, and they were handing,
Yeah.
they were counting out the jelly beans. It's very sad.
Oh, wow.
So moving on to the last bit of news, from the intimate part of Intimacy Coordinator Department. None other than SAG-AFTRA has announced a new clarification for intimacy coordinators. For those of you who don't know or care for that matter, intimacy coordinators are defined as liaisons between actors and production for nudity and intimate scenes. Part of the new deal from the strike that we talked about on the show says that studios and production companies must take performance requests for an intimacy coordinator under consideration without retribution. The clarification has come out of a recent interview where one such coordinator who was being interviewed about a sex scene between Jenna Ortega from Wednesday and Scream 6 and Martin Freeman in the new film Miller's Girl. Christiana Arjona, the coordinator, says, there was many people throughout this process engaging with Jenna to make sure that it was consistent to what she was comfortable with, and she was very determined and very sure of what she wanted to do. I'm hyper aware of both my talent and making sure that we're consistently checking in, and at no point are there any boundaries being surpassed. SAG says now, public release of details about an actor's scene or confidences entrusted to the intimacy coordinator without the performer's consent is now unacceptable. Intimacy coordinators who fail to adhere to these rules could be removed from the SAG-AFTRA's registry. So, are you familiar with intimacy coordinators? Jen?
Not really, because I turned down those roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't.
So you're
Yeah, I actually got to work with Alicia Rodess, who was the first intimacy coordinator ever.
Who was this?
Alicia Rodess. She was the first intimacy coordinator ever. She was the one that kind of coined the job title on The Deuce with James Franco. And there were 5 of us who were just stark naked in background, but we were of course in the foreground. And it was so well done. Everything was choreographed. It was a closed set, so unless you had to be there, you weren't there. Each guy was assigned their own robe person that, like, when they called action, that person would take your robe and run away. And when they called cut, they'd bring the robe back out, and so you weren't just like standing around with your bits out. It's such an important job. There were so many horror stories of the industry over the last however many decades that we've been doing this, of intimate scenes that go completely awry.
Really?
I don't remember the film, but it's 2 very well-known actors from yesteryears, where there was a scene where this man is chasing this woman and he gets her on the floor and he's supposed to assault her on the floor, and the director wasn't getting the reaction he wanted from her, so they took a frozen stick of butter, chased her down, tagged her on the floor, and shoved it inside of her without telling her.
What?
And like they got the reaction that they wanted.
What if she was vegan?
Who cares? Like, it's just like that. She wasn't told. It wasn't talked. She wasn't spoken to about it. She didn't consent to it. And that's one of thousands of stories that probably we don't know. So having this kind of person on set is like so important for the safety of everyone. But then also it's your job. Like you go into set knowing, okay, today we're shooting this scene, and you're going to do this, and then you're moving your left arm, and then you're allowed to do this. And crossing any boundaries is how we ended up with the Me Too movement in 2018, because so many boundaries have been crossed. So I think is the most important person on set if you're going to have any kind of nudity or sex scenes or
James
anything.
Franco was there, and then he's the most important.
Well,
person.
I
no, I'm just
I
kidding.
love him.
I'm just kidding. Was he there? Was he there when you were nude?
Yeah.
So was he in your eye line when you were nude?
Oh, yeah.
So does that like affect your measurements at all? Okay, that's all.
What
I'm
if
just saying, I was
coordinators
I saw
woke?
James Franco.
What if they hire a coordinator and they got the woke idea and then it's all off the wall
So-
and then the movie's really fucked up? Excuse my language, right? Because you say intimate coordinator, but they're woke. The same way I swim in the pool, they're teaching the lifeguards teaching people, but the woke guys teaching them, they ain't saving everybody in the pool now. Just what I'm saying, that's what happened maybe over intimacy. We know what intimacy is, but what if they come with their whole idea? Are they, who is it? Like,
We actually
she's
have
the
to
first
take
lady.
we actually have to take our break, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more. It came from the radio.
Hey everybody, this is Todd McFarlane of the record-setting Spawn comic series, and if you're looking for any kind of cool conversation about creators, about entertainment, about all that good stuff, you go to It Came From The Radio. You're listening to the
Sorry,
right
Mr.
spot.
Your pool analogy.
This is Clint Flynn, a popular voice actor known for Axel, Timon, and Ryan from the Metal Gear series. And you're listening to It Came From The Radio. Stick around.
They don't steal
Hey, I'm Mike Kingston, the writer and creator of Headlocked, and I am WWE Hall of Famer Charlie the King Lawler, and guess what you're listening to? You're listening to It Came From The Radio!
Hi, this is Amy Jo Johnson, writer-director from the film The Space Between, and you're listening to It Came From The Radio.
Meet Grimlock having fun on It Came From The Radio.
Con in front of a live studio audience.
Hey, how you doing?
At the Eastville Public Library for our 78th live show. Just letting everybody know that the library has tons and tons of programming, most of which are free, one of which is our show. We do it the second Wednesday of every month. Our next show is going to be on Wednesday, April 10th at 7 p.m. We're going to have professional stand-up comic, Brian McKenna.
April when?
April 10th.
Okay. I thought you said April 5th.
And if you go to www.eastmill.info, you can get more information on that. Like I said, they have tons and tons of programming, which is really great for the library to have. And make sure you guys go check out other stuff as well as our show as well. I'm here with Elman Jennifer, who ran away for a couple of seconds, senior correspondent Charlie Saladino,
Hell yeah.
and our special guest we're going to be talking to with the Malcolms is Edward Miskie.
Hello.
So, actually, usually when we have a guest on the show, I've known them for a long time, but this is my actual first time meeting you today.
Today.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to familiarize with the audience?
Well, I mean, what do you want to know?
Well, let's see. We'll start off from the top. What made you decide to become the triple threat of an actor, author, and producer, as opposed, or did you start off at one and then you decided to branch out to the other?
I don't know if there was ever a particular moment that I was like, this is what I want to do, but I grew up doing shows and performing and whatnot ever since I was a kid, like knee high. And so when I had the realization that I could make a career out of it, I was like, well, of course I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So basically from the time I was 14 onward, I was like, well, I don't need high school anymore. I'm going to New York and I'm going to be an actor, and the end.
So you were 14 when you realized this can be a career?
Yes, that was 13 or 14. I'd actually come to New York and saw 42nd Street. It was my first Broadway show.
Really?
And my aunt was working backstage, so we got to go backstage and meet Christine Ebersole, who was there, and do the show and a bunch of other things. But it was the first time that I was like, oh, this is an actual like job. Like, I don't need to be a person. I can go be an actor instead.
So was that your first time ever in New York?
Yeah.
So it was your first time in New York. You not only go see a Broadway play, you go see a major Broadway play, and you get the behind the scenes treatment.
Yeah.
That's a complete opposite of what most people do. They just go to New York for one time, either they go to New York and they go see a play. But for your very first time, it must have been a life-changing, I guess it is, experience.
Yeah, from that point on, I was like, I don't care about school. I'm moving here, and I don't need any of this.
So then, you decide what's next for you.
I mean, I barely got through high school. I moved here 3 days after graduation, and it was just like deuces bye. And I figured it out. You know, I mean, it was a long slog. I also wanted to do like pop music because I grew up loving that, and then I was in recording studios with my dad, and then we had a small little recording studio at my house, so I was writing music with him and like doing all kinds of stuff there. So there was like this dual want of being Britney Spears and also do Broadway. So once I realized the downtown music scene was horrendous and I didn't want to be a part of it, I started auditioning for theater stuff. And it took a couple years, but things finally started to stick, and I was fortunate enough to work pretty much full time as an actor for about 15 years.
Now, back in the day, and correct me if I'm wrong, senior correspondent Charlie Saladino, it was a known thing that people used to just pack up and move to Hollywood to be the famous actor. What made New York? Was it because of the place that you came to New York, or?
Well, it's where Broadway is, and that's part of what I wanted to do. Television wasn't really on my radar back then. It was more like being on stage and having an audience and being able to sing, and there wasn't a whole lot of TV, movie, musical things happening back then. So the idea to go to LA wasn't really appealing. I didn't want to have a car. I liked being in the city. It's close to where my parents are. They're only 3 hours out. It just it made sense to me, and it was, I don't know, it just felt good, and I didn't want to waste time. In my mind, I was like running out of time actively at 17 years old, and so I didn't want to waste time going to LA to sniff that out and see if I liked that. So I just came here.
And have you left, or you've been here?
I've never left. I've been here the whole time.
That's crazy. See,
bury me in the sidewalk.
Where did you leave from?
Oh, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Central.
So now you were with mom and dad in Pennsylvania, and you were what, 13, 14?
I mean, I grew up there, so
No, I know, when you were,
birth to high school
when you
graduation.
left, where
Oh,
you-
I was 18, I graduated high school.
Oh, okay, I thought you left there when you were 13.
No, we all came here as a family.
Oh, okay.
Listen,
thank
I
God.
got-
Yeah,
I've been
because
here for
I'm
14.
thinking Italian
No,
families,
no,
I want
I tried-
running down the block.
I tried to convince them to let me move here when I was like 15, 16 years old. I was like, there's LaGuardia High School, there's Frank Sinatra High, I can go to one of those, like let's get me in. And they were like,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
So how do you wind up writing a book?
Complete accident. I never had any aspirations to be a writer at all. I've always liked writing. I was a good writer in high school. I had some things published in school paper and like poems like published in student anthologies and stuff like that. But it never occurred to me that I would be one officially. And so like the whole cancer journey thing happened, and I was a couple years out and I felt very displaced in my own life. And I met someone who had kind of, he had just found out he was cancer free. And I think I was about 3-ish years out at that point. And he kind of said something to me that like turned a light bulb on, and I was like, oh wow, that's exactly how I've been feeling for the last 3 years. It's not just me. And so we had a very long conversation about all of the things of feeling like a stranger in your own life, and everyone around you is annoying, and like what's happening, and why am I angry all the time, and you know, this loss of self-identity and trying to figure that out again. And once he and I parted ways, I was like, I need to write about this. I have to write about this because I've never heard of this before. There's no resources for this. All they do is be like, join a support group, and I don't want to sit in a room with a bunch of people like whining about their feelings. I'm more proactive than that. So I reached out to a couple other people I knew who had cancer, and I asked them some very specific questions about what life immediately after the fact was like, and everyone said the exact same thing. And so at the time, I had a little desk job down in Chelsea, and I spent every day, 5 days a week, 6 to 8 hours a day at this desk typing away, and just like brain dumping everything out that I possibly could. And then went back and shaped it and edited it and, you know, got it published. It was a total accident.
What kind of cancer did you have?
I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was the official and long title of it is rare and large diffuse B-cell Burkitt's-like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Very rare. Not a whole lot of people survive it. I'm the only person who has survived it this long without a reoccurrence. So I do know someone else who had the same type, but he's had it come back 3 times.
Wow.
He's now 61. He just kicked it again last year. We have the same oncologist, so bless her. But it was quite a ride.
So I'm gonna ask you a very personal question.
Go for it.
Situation, because my mother had died of cancer, and I never asked her this, and I always have a fear of death myself. If you get that diagnosis, the prognosis, what goes through your mind? And seeing as that it didn't happen, which is amazing, what goes through your mind?
Oh, what a question. Well, I think the initial thing is denial, right? You kind of go through like stages of grief in a sense, where you're like, whatever, it's fine. It's whatever. I don't have time for this. Let's just do it and get it over with, and like be done with it. I had a phase where that was the case, and then things started to really go south, and no one really knew what to do, and none of the treatment was working, and that's kind of when I had to have the hard talk with the oncologist, like, nah, you might not make it. We're not sure what's happening.
Wow.
And so at that point, you're like, you know, it just kind of hits you like a ton of bricks. What are you supposed to do? And I did not respond well.
How did you respond?
Pick a vice, I did it, and I was like, how do I cope? You know, I was promised an oversized lollipop and some booze and things, and I got those. Drank my way through chemo.
Oh wow.
You know, it was a huge spiral. I was imploding left and right, and the only thing that really kept me going was that I'm a people pleaser, and so I didn't want to miss any of my appointments. I wanted to be a good boy and show up on time.
Oh my god.
You know, and so that's kind of why I'm alive. Like my control issues and psychosis is people pleasing. But yeah, you kind of go through a lot of up and downs of like, I got this, it's no problem, who cares? to like that, like hollowing out feeling of like, this is it, okay, this is all we're gonna accomplish. And then you spend a lot of time sitting there looking back at your life and being like, I didn't do anything. This can't be it. And it's very frustrating and infuriating, and I think that's kind of why I wrote this book so fast, is because it was just like, get it out, you know, make it happen, hurry up.
What things are more important to you now?
I don't think there's any one in particular thing that's more important to me now. I think it's more so that I can see things that are really not important.
Well, like what things, are no
Yeah,
longer
like
important.
it's very easy to be like, who cares?
Okay,
Move on.
Yeah.
gotcha.
Certainly my relationships with my friends and family have gotten much closer during that period of time to now. I call my parents every day.
Wow.
That's also a COVID thing. When that happened, I started checking in with them every day, but it's stayed. And we've always had a pretty okay relationship. And a couple years prior to that, it got much better. And then when that happened, it was just like, if my family can survive that, we're good.
Yeah.
Wow. It's, well, the important thing is that you're alive. And,
The alternative wasn't appealing.
and it's just, like you said, you realize what's not a problem or what's, you know. And what are your goals now?
You know, that's such a good question. They change all the time. You know, I saw this really great interview with Jamie Lee Curtis not too long ago where she was saying that when she turned 60, it hit her that she still had so much creativity left inside of her. And if she would die having not gotten all of it out, then that would be the biggest tragedy to her. And I heard that and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. So every idea of something that I want to create or do, I try to set a plan in motion to do it because I don't want to leave anything behind. And by behind, I mean I want to leave things behind here in the world, book included, but I don't want to have anything held back. I want to wring it all out.
There you go.
So, one thing we've talked to many actors and actresses over the years, and something that most people don't talk about is how you have to have a hard skin because rejection is part of the game. You get more no's than yeses. That's just how it works. So going through this situation, is that not even a thing? Like, well, no, it's just no rejection. It doesn't even affect you anymore, or does it still affect you?
You know, I would like to say that it doesn't affect me anymore. I'm not really performing anymore. I was, again, very lucky to have done it consistently, full time, paid my bills constantly by just performing. I also was fortunate enough that I created my own show, toured it around the country. That was also in my measure successful as well. But I kind of was really done with it by the time like the end of 2019, early 2020 hit.
Good time.
I wanted to focus on creating my own things, and I was already kind of veering my head towards creating things in TV land. And then when the world shut down, it really gave me a second to like pause and be like, actually, I really don't like doing this anymore, and I want to focus on other things that don't include this. The funny part about that is that foolishly, I came out of retirement in 2022, I suppose that was, and I was on the national tour of Chicago, and right before we left, I was replaced. And I've got no reason, I don't know why, it's just the thing that happens in the industry. Patty LaPone famously was replaced in Sunset Boulevard when I came over here. She sued Andrew Lloyd Webber, it's the whole thing. And I basically did the same thing. I got paid out and I left, I still don't know why. And it was kind of this reminder that like, you didn't really want to continue doing this anyway.
Right.
And it was really a very hard like stop and also redirect. Because everything that happened from that point forward, specifically with this book, but also in life, has been the right thing. And it's been easy, which is not something I can say for performing in theater around the country.
Wow.
And by easy is relative, but you know, like in comparison, this stuff within my book than it has in anything else I've ever done. And so the rejection part of it, like, you do get used to it, especially like in the circus of auditioning constantly. You're just like, well, that's just another one, moving on. I really wanted it, but there's another one around the corner, so it's fine. You know, like dating. And so, like, having the big job and feeling so close to finally like doing something I'd never been able to do before, and then losing it was just a reminder that, like, you know what, I'm not in the club, I never was in the club, I don't want to fight as hard as I would have to fight to be in the club. I'm good creating my own club over here, so we're just gonna do this now.
I think that's kind of the theme of life for so many people right now.
Yeah.
In almost every field, small business is like kind of create it yourself, and I feel like the people who don't in the next few years will just be left behind. I guess there's always an opportunity to create, but we're at a point where you still can. So that's cool.
Well, I mean, I think there's always going to be a point where you can, because people
Yeah,
have always and
probably.
will always create. Whether they consider themselves to be a creative person or not, you're constantly
Right.
creating. You're creating the outfit you put on this morning
Right,
by
right.
pulling clothes out of your closet for whatever reason you chose. That you chose, that is creating.
Yeah.
And so something as little as that, or something as big as creating a TV show, or
Right.
creating a comic book, or whatever the case may be. You always have the agency to do that, whether you feel like you do or not. You make the choice to create something. It's up to you to do it. It's up to you to sit down with a pen and paper and create ideas and make a plan for yourself and implement that plan. And I know that it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, I have to make money and I have to work and I have this 9 to 5 and blah 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 blah. And that's all true, and you do have to do that. But I think once you flip the way you think about it to the job owns me to I own the job, like they pay me and that funds my project and that funds the life that I actually want.
Right.
And so the whole like starving artist thing, like you have to be, you know, a waiter or whatever, you don't.
Right.
You just have to think of the job that you have during the day as the thing that keeps you going in the direction you want to go.
Right.
John, yes.
No, I'm like agreeing with everything. This is the most, yeah, it's, yes, definitely. There's nothing I can add or
And don't let your side
ask you.
jobs become your main job.
Yeah. Well, and also I would even say don't view them as your side job. It's just your job.
Yeah.
If it pays you, it's your job.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like
Right,
I work in corporate. It's it's one of the things that I started out in. When I was 20 years old, I was in the corporate office of a hedge fund. And I was like, oh, I have to get out of here as soon as possible because this is hindering everything. But I was making more money than my dad at 20 years old.
That's crazy.
And I couldn't wait to get out of there. But like stupid me, had I stayed there, you know, like adjust for inflation, like the amount of money
Oh my
I'd be making would be
God.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'd be able to do whatever I wanted. And like you said, I think there's a shift happening, but I think that shift is more so people are starting to realize that I don't necessarily have to do this or that.
Right.
It's
Right.
You can do both.
Yeah, it's nice people are finally seeing that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, I don't understand. You do this, but you do that too. And it's like,
Don't even get me started on that one.
But that's cool because people are realizing you can do a lot of different things.
Yeah,
And you're not,
and then
if you're a
you're
fireman,
in
you can
charge.
also be a ceramic maker.
Yeah, and you're in charge of what you want.
Yeah, for sure.
It's, I'm 68 and I'm still doing crazy stuff, and I'm
Yeah,
still
you joined the
being
castle.
creative. And I don't think of it as, hey, you're 60. I'm thinking of it as, this is what I want to do.
Right.
This is what I want to do. I don't care where you're supposed to. Whoever says you're supposed to be in a certain place at this time.
Yeah.
It's like.
I mean, the truth of it is, regardless of whether we're talking about career choices or jobs or whatnot, you could get in your car and drive across the country and turn off your phone and never be heard from again. And that would be great. If that's what you want to do,
Right.
Yeah.
wonderful.
Right.
But that's your choice, and you're free to make that choice at any time because no one is stopping you.
That is cool about this time, since 2020. I feel like people can model their lives the way they want to.
Well, they always have been able to.
Yeah, but they didn't.
But I think now the tolerance level to do so is lower.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you want to disappear or you want to quit your job and go start a totally different career or start your own business or go go live in the forest in a tent. Like, do it.
Right.
Literally do it. There's no one stopping you from doing that.
Right. That's a lot of leadership mindset, which a lot of people don't have. I know some people, one of my family, I don't think.
I mean, I think we're all born with it. I think it's beaten out of us.
Yeah.
Figuratively
probably,
or
right?
literally, depending on your situation. But to make that decision, I think is selfish in a good way. And we're told not to do that. We're told not to be selfish and not to only think of ourselves. When if you're in a situation where you feel like you have to leave your job or you have to make a change in your life, the only person you should be thinking about is yourself. Because to stay in that situation for the sake of someone else, no.
Right.
Do you find that tragedy, because you had your own personal tragedy and then the pandemic hit, you were in New York during the pandemic, do you find that that was the extra push and motivation that you needed to get everything done?
I think it's certainly part of the puzzle. I think it's a big part of the puzzle. But external things motivating you to do anything is always tough, right? Because then you're doing it for the wrong reason. Like if seeing someone else win motivates you to work harder to also win, then you're doing it for the wrong reason. You're doing it to spite them. You have to want to do it because you want to do it. And you kind of have to shut everyone else out. So, like, did 2020 play into this and shut down all that? Like, absolutely, because it made me stop and actually realize, like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And I want to go over here and I want to do that. And it also, I think, on a more widespread level, gave everyone the opportunity to see that they also can do that. Because your job isn't real, time isn't real, money is not real, everything that we're told and the structures in which we live are not real. They're made up and we have a social contract with them to follow them. And we do that because it's the greater good for our fellow man. But we can also stop doing it.
I just want to comment, I notice a lot of people, let's say someone's a swimmer or singer, whatever your profession is, theater, and you must have done it for at least 15 years?
Oh, way longer.
I don't know.
Professionally for 15.
Right,
Yeah.
so at least 15. So after 15 years, at least for me, if I do something for like 3 to 8 years, 10 years, it's like, okay, we kind of got a handle on this, now I want to do something else. And then people say, oh, do you still teach? Or I taught workout classes. It's like, you kind of get it, and now you want to do something else. And the whole Jamie Lee Curtis thing for you, I think it makes sense for you to not want to do theater. It's like, you got it, you understand it, and now if you believe in this life purpose thing, or even if you don't, whatever, let's say you're here for 70 years, 100 years, there's so many other things you can do with your time, so it really makes sense. It's not, I don't really see it as quitting, it's like to go on to the next thing and take everything you learned and build upon it. It just seems normal, but I think some small-minded people might not.
And also we are supposed to keep changing and growing.
Yeah.
There is no age that we hit where we're supposed to stop. Like,
Right.
I know everything now, we're done here.
How 30-year-olds that?
But well, I mean, as a 30-something year old, like that's
No, 30, like 30.
Oh, I'm
30-year-old men, straight men, for example, they think they know, just whatever. Let them get the
This is a
39
very
and divorce,
different
and then we'll talk.
and yes conversation.
There's a lot to learn.
Yes. But growth and learning and changing is something we always should do. And so I mean, it's easy to get stuck in a job because you're comfortable. It's easy to get stuck in a job because the money is good, or you feel like you need to be there, or it's a sense of identity or community. But again, with you as yourself being in charge of what you do now and what you do next, it's like,
Yeah, 100%. I feel all of that. Really, definitely.
Social media time. So where can people find out more about you? Where can their websites, all that fun stuff go?
Google me. I am on Instagram and TikTok and other platforms at Edward Miskie. There's edwardmiskie.com. If you're in the city, you can buy my book at the Drop Bookshop on West 39th Street. It's also available online on Barnes & Noble and Walmart and Indigo and Amazon and all of them, everywhere you buy books. Let's just say that.
Now, you were nice enough to raffle off a copy of your book, so why don't you tell us what they're going to win for the audience? What are they going to win?
What you're winning, and God love you, is brace yourself. It is it's basically a telling of basically where I was at from the time I was diagnosed until the time I was told I was cancer free, and then after the fact. It's written like a musical. It is Act 1, Act 2, and each chapter is framed within an existing musical. You don't have to like musicals to like the book. It just adds another layer of cheekiness if you get the references. But it chronicles basically what happens to you physically, emotionally, otherwise when something like this happens. It's less about cancer and more about the human experience of what it's like to have it. I talk a lot about dating, sex, relationships, how your view on the world changes, all from like, I did this, I did that, blah, 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 blah. I got into a fight with a cop once on Fifth Avenue because I thought he was being rude to me, and he actually really wasn't. It was my fault. But, you know, it's a lot of different stories about how I got through.
Alright, so everybody has their raffle ticket. Get one copy. This is pick the winner.
This is not for the faint of heart, y'all.
Pick one, and
Alright.
the winner is.
Are we going by last 3 or 4 digits?
Yeah, last 3 or 4.
Last 3, okay, 1050.
1050? 1050? 1050?
5-1.
There we go, alright, yay! Alright, we always like to give away something in every live show at the East Meadow Public Library. Well, final thought time. So, Ed, do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I mean, listen, go out into the world and tear it down and make it the way that you want it to be for
Build it
yourself.
up, and then tear it down.
Right.
Final thoughts, Charlie?
I think we're on a panel with one of the most amazing human beings that we've ever been on. Very inspirational. You should take that book on tour and just put plugs up people's rear ends and get out and do
There's a chapter about that.
Okay, final thoughts?
Anyone who's done theater for 15 years or even 2 years, you deserve the rest. I'm not even trying. No way. You record that thing once and you send it to them. That's where I'm at. So,
Right.
respect for theater people. Holy crap.
It's a hard job.
Yeah.
So my final thought is this. Thank you very much, Ed, for being a guest on our live show. For our live show audience, you're a really interesting and inspiring person. And I'm very glad that you reached out to us to come down and be a guest on the show.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much, and much continued success. And we did talk about some stuff before we started recording, and best of luck with that. And
Thank
let
you.
us know and come back when you get that, fingers crossed, done.
I will.
So that about does it for this week on
Cryptic
the Came
cliffhanger.
So that about does it for this week on the Came From Radio. Join us right here and every week on this radio station. If you miss any part of the show, really not even gonna? Alright, fine. Thank you. Go to www.camefromradio.com. Make sure you guys go to the East Meadow Public Library, www.eastmeadow.info for our next live show, which is going to be on Wednesday, April 10th at 7 p.m. with professional stand-up comic Brian McKenna. Thank you everybody for being a part of the live show audience.
You've been listening to It Came From the Radio with Mac Torrance. The views of the